I'd like to tell you a story about a town called Lara. It's a story that goes way back to 1860, over 160 years ago, and it includes names such as Henderson, Darcy, Board, Kelly, and Bisinella, amongst many others. Names you may well be very familiar with today, and while the story is largely linked to this building behind me here, it's a story about changing times and community spirit. It's about togetherness and teamwork. It's a story about recognition of the past as our modern world makes way for the future. Now, the names may well sound familiar, and if you've driven from Geelong to Lara via Forest Road South, then no doubt this building probably looks familiar too. A funny looking place by today's standards, it was built in 1860 for a man named James Henderson, an immigrant from Scotland. James called it the Lake Bank Hotel, and it is now one of Lara's oldest buildings. The Lake Bank Hotel was a pub and operated as such for the best part of 50 years. So think back to those days for a moment. The roads would have been dirt, dry and hard in summer and mud in winter. Most people would have worked very hard for a living, and most of that work would have been on the land, hands-on and dirty. They wouldn't have owned very much, and our modern view of lifestyle wouldn't have even factored into their vernacular. The vast majority of adults in Lara would have immigrated here from overseas, a melting pot of language and culture. So James the Scot builds a pub on the corner. Can you picture it now? It's a brisk winter's evening. There's music playing and beer and whiskey to be had. A mishmash of people crammed into those tiny little rooms, all there to live life a little. Ah, if the walls could talk, what stories they might tell. But let's fast forward 150 years to 2010. By then, the property had seen 5 generations of James Henderson's family call the building home. 5 generations. Made from limestone that literally came from a hole in the ground over the road, and to a very different design spec to today, the building was showing its age and needed work, to say the least. By then, Lara had seen significant growth, and another family business, Bisinella Developments, led by Lino Bisinella, had already successfully developed land in Lara, helping to fill Australia's seemingly insatiable appetite for new homes. And so the stage was set for the next scene. James Henderson's great-grandson Jack Darcy and his wife Brenda sold the property to Lino. Now, by 2010, Lara was a reasonably big place, but still small enough that the locals could keep their ear to the ground. And sure enough, a couple of long-time Lara residents and friends, Ian Board and Les Kelly, had caught wind that Lino had purchased the property. Ian, Les and Lino, it seems, had a few traits in common. While they may not have realised it early on, it turned out they all shared a passion for giving back to the community, a desire to preserve Lara's history and make it easily accessible to the public. Many times over, Ian and Les had discussed their concerns that much of Lara's historical material needed a home and was at risk of being lost and forgotten. So, armed with their new information as garnered from the rumour mill, they approached Lino with the idea of turning the building into a museum. Lino enthusiastically agreed, and with work to be done on both sides of the relationship, an agreement was forged. Lino turned his significant resources, and took on the associated significant costs, to focus on a total rejuvenation of the property. Ian and Les, meanwhile, had their own mountain to climb. Their bright idea was fast becoming a reality, but how would it work? Who would run the museum? And where would the exhibits come from?
There was a few hurdles. We first needed to get a gauge on whether the community wanted it, and got some people together and had a couple of meetings, and it sort of evolved from there.
We then made it known that we were operating and that we needed, items to be able to put in the museum.
We were determined to get it moving, and that's how it all come about.
It happened to turn out to be coming up to the 50-year mark of the 1969 bushfires, and when we started trying to compile all the stuff, we were amazed at how much memorabilia and that the people were offering to us. Yeah, it was the commemoration of the 69 fires that really helped us, along the way, sort of thing, and we certainly haven't looked back from there.
In January of 2012, a community organisation, the Lara Heritage and Historical Inc., was incorporated, with the structure seeing the organisation's volunteer members run the museum. Meanwhile, the Bisinella team was still hard at work.
It did need a lot of work, as you can see by the book. They made the windows themselves in timber because it should be, and the doors and all that, and silicon nicely, because nothing is square there. So they had the skill to do it on site. It's always been my intention when we bought this land here that this place got to be protected. Always has been.
But renovating the building and signing a lease was only a portion of the dedication shown. The Bisinellas wanted to ensure the property and all of the associated Henderson family history and the wider Lara community history was protected long term, and the best thing they could do to achieve that was to have the property heritage listed. Officially opened on the April of 2013 and celebrated with a gala public opening day and street carnival, the building originally built by James Henderson finally had a fresh new purpose. The museum has been open to the public ever since. Run by a dedicated band of volunteers, visitors have come from destinations near and far, including internationally, to fossick through the memorabilia. A favourite with school groups, the wonders of Lara's yesteryear have intrigued the young almost as much as those who can remember their mum or dad working the butter churn or wearing those old shoes. The L-shaped building opens onto a charming courtyard featuring a manicured lawn and garden, framed by the original outbuildings. There are plenty of nooks to be explored and the odd swaggy to be found. The pianola is often a big hit, as are the period dresses and furniture.
Well, I am myself and the committee, we are very proud of what we've done. We've preserved something there that's there for, well, I suppose for all time. And I think it gives back to the community and they can all enjoy it.
I'm proud of because of those people behind me. I'm proud of what Bisinella did with my kids because they're great kids, and pass it on to these guys who runs it and the people come to see it. I don't want to say thanks Lino Bisinella for what you did. Nah, I'm proud of what I did because what you did for the community.
I'm very proud of that. At least there's going to be something there for the future, and something that'll tell the history of Lara, and that would have all been lost if we hadn't have been so enthusiastic to get it done.
Whatever you create in your lifetime, such as you create this, is you do it in a way so others can benefit from. And so people benefit from this, what we have done, part of my community. Community to me has always been very important, and especially where you live.
I've just enjoyed being able to sort of help the community and give back to the community that's looked after me so well.
But to me, community means people. And that's all that matters to me.
So here we have a community that has pulled together to recognise its past. And through teamwork and dedication and a sharing of what each of those team members has to offer, they've created a hub that continues to add to that very community. And while it was never ever the intention or the motivation of those involved, by making a museum that looks at the history of Lara, the people involved have themselves taken a place in history. A place they can be proud of. A place that recognises those who have come before us and forms as a platform for the future ahead. So there you have it, one of the many stories about Lara. If you'd like to know more of them, well, now you know where to start looking.